Getting into the 2023 Honda Classic. Got the preview, touching on the top stat fits, best in course history, best in recent form, and overall top plays in each price point tier, highlighting the core plays, and also giving you guys a first look build. Let's get into it. All right, so getting into the Honda Classic here. This is a tournament that I'm pretty excited for. I love events like this in which we kind of have to earn it. Now, I was looking at the price, and the pricing is kind of soft, so it's not going to be that difficult to make a good lineup. So it won't be as unique as some of those lower caliber field events. No, it should be pretty easy to make a solid build. We kind of know what to be looking at this tournament. So just going off of that, we know which key stats we should be looking at. So this tournament is a tournament that does play as a hard scoring event each week or each year. We can see the average winning score is also one that is typically a harder scoring one. Like the average winning score is going to be 9 under par. The average cut is around 2.6 over par. So a very hard scoring track. And honestly, it's just not the most fun course either. So I get why a lot of the top name players kind of choose not to play it. It is a shorter track, par 70, but it is going to be a tournament in which we have a lot of water hazards in play as well. So that's going to be a data point to look at when we're going through the specialist tab. Now, key stat wise, it's kind of a simple approach. And what I mean by that is we have seen some really good success up until last year where Seb Straka won, and he was a bad play as well. We had hit 4 straight winners at this tournament. So Matt Jones, Sungjae Im, Keith Mitchell, and JT there. And so that's because we know which data to go off of, okay? It's going to be toll driving. It's going to be ball striking. Those are going to be 2 data points that we are really going in on. We also are going to be looking at birdie to bogey ratio, but also bogey avoidance. We're kind of pairing those 2 together. Yes, we want to be focused on players that are going to score enough birdies to kind of make up for the bogeys that they're going to make, because players are going to make bogeys. But that's why we're also focusing on bogey avoidance this week as well. That's kind of what this is telling us. When we see birdie or better not be as significant, obviously players need to make some birdies to do well. That's why it's always one of those key stats in terms of making a cut. Looking at it, greens and regulation and strokes gained approach, we can see just peppering greens is going to be key. Players need to be hitting greens. So we are going to be looking at greens and regulation and strokes gained approach as well. And we kind of just get a good sense of which data points we need to go in on. I was a little bit shocked that on average, strokes gained off the tee is kind of a good stat to look at in terms of winning upside. Other than that, not a big key stat, which is kind of crazy as well. So let's go ahead and look at kind of the top stat fits based off of those data points. So the biggest issue we're going to have this week is that with it being a lower caliber kind of field, we are going to have some players coming in that don't have the full sample size that we would want, like Min Woo Lee, like Adrian here. This is a, DP Tour stats that we're getting in here. Okay, so that's kind of why they're probably popping up. So if we just want to focus on the PGA players, sure, like Sungjae Im, Chris Kirk, Aaron Wise, and that's why Chris Kirk is going to be a high price play this week. Aaron Wise, Will Gordon, JT Poston, Johnny V, Alex Noren, Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel has some, course ties to this area. Aaron Rai, S.H. Kim, Matt Kuchar. Okay, so we do have some pretty solid plays. Let's go ahead and take a peek at course history. So looking at course history, typically I like to focus on those golfers that have had at least 3 starts at this, or at least 2 starts at this tournament when going through this segment. But having any sort of course history is always a bonus over not. So we can see Harris English didn't play it the last 2 years, but finished 17th and 12th the previous 2 years before that. Kind of think why he would do well. He is typically a good ball striker and toll driver. Okay, that makes sense. He's not a golfer that typically is shooting himself out of tournaments as well. Shane Lowry, a hardcore specialist pretty much, or a hard scoring course specialist. So it's no surprise that he has played well. Mark Hubbard, okay, this is one of my fond memories of going to this event, was watching a value play Mark Hubbard and 3 years ago before COVID go off. And this was, if any of you guys follow fantasy golf at all, there was the DFS Open, which a lot of the big names, not even the big names, a lot of people just in the fantasy golf industry came together and played in a charity golf tournament. It was a lot of fun. But I just remember being on 18, watching Mark Hubbard was kind of a value play that week for me. Awesome to see that he has good course history, 15th, 46th, 11th. Billy Horschel, 16th, 42nd, and 16th. The interesting thing with Billy Horschel this week is that I don't know if we can play him. He is trying to change his swing, and it's one of those situations in which, why do golfers, especially Billy Horschel, who was coming in off of a really solid season last year, super consistent, why is he changing his swing? What benefit is he going to get from that? He's not getting any. And we saw Ricky go through that struggle for a long time before he got rid of his swing coat. It's just strange that he's choosing to do that. We got Johnny V, 4 straight make cuts at this tournament. He's going to be someone that we're going to be looking at. Going to be tough not to like him. Ryan Palmer, we can see barely made the cut last year, but 17th, 4th. Cam Davis, 3 straight make cuts at this tournament. We go a little bit further. We can see Sungjae miscut at this event last year. He is someone that does have just random miscuts is what it seems like. Other than that, though, 8th, 1st, 51st, so pretty good stuff there. Seb Straka, 1st, 33rd, 27th. And his kind of profile last year was an interesting one because obviously he did have somewhat decent starts here. Had decent-ish recent form coming into it, like was just a solid-ish play, like not an ideal play. And that's kind of the theme. We look at Matt Jones, hit him as an outright winner. What was it, 2 years ago, 70-1. And he was kind of the exact same play where he was a good enough play, kind of given the odds you wanted to make the bet because you could tell based off the players around him wasn't an ideal play, but based off the players around him, like someone you would say that was a good value-based bet and play that week in DFS. That's kind of the theme we're going to have this week. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at recent form. And so a lot of the times in events like this, we have to default to recent form rank. And so we can see 2 of the DP Tour studs are the players that are coming in with the best recent form. Now, whether you want to include the DP Tour starts, that's up to you. I have decided to include those, especially this season, in which DP Tour players are definitely playing for more of a PGA Tour card now. Right. And Thomas Dietrich has been someone we've been in on a lot. You guys know it. He's been playing some extremely good golf. And so given the caliber of the field that we have, like if he's finishing, let's say top 40 the last 3 weeks in this field, should be able to finish at least like top 25. Adrian as well. He is someone that went off in round 2 to make the cut. And if you guys followed last week's coverage, you heard us mention him and Sam Ryder as like the top 2 values. Those are the only 2 values I ended up on in the 9-to-5 player pool. So if you had done a studs and duds approach, you had a really strong week. And I think a lot of people did have a strong week and really a strong season thus far, content wise, I would say as well. Also, Tyler Duncan, for what it's worth, I was like, man, he should not be min price, right? Like $6K for Tyler Duncan was just strange. I'm like, he should at least be above these 6.4 price players. I'm wondering if anyone ended up on him. He ended up making the cut, ended up finishing top 40. I'm curious if anyone ended up on him as well. But looking at recent form, then we get into Sungjae. Matt Kuchar has been playing some much better golf. Joseph Brentlett popping up there. That's surprising. Alex Noren, I don't know if we can go in on him, guys. Very frustrating. He has really hindered some GPP winning lineups, some potential GPP winning lineups the last 2 weeks. Oh, that was frustrating. That was frustrating. Last weekend, 2 weeks ago, miscut on the number, bogeyed 18, which ruined a lineup that really could have been in contention to win 2 weeks ago. Ben Griffin, Aaron Baddeley. You guys know we've been on Aaron Baddeley. Stefan Yeager as well. He's someone that's been playing much better recently. We can see Denny McCarthy, a little bit of mixed results, but when we have gotten that upside, it's been very solid. Eric Cole, a very strong price point play, I think, this week. So we have a lot of decent plays. And then lastly, let's go ahead and get into the specialist tab. So this is going to be a tab in which it's really what do you want to go in on, right? We have all the data that you'd want and more, way too much. Okay. What I find interesting is we can look at stuff like the water hazards. Like this is an event that's going to be a lot of water hazards in place. So let's go ahead and look at that. And last year, I remember I posted this data point and a lot of people didn't like it and it ended up actually being pretty predictive in terms of like how players played well. So what I have set for many is courses in which are over 11 water hazards or more. That is many. And so that's what's going into this. Many water hazards in play. And so these are the top players. I'm not sure how many starts are going into Eric Barnes or Austin Eckrat. Probably not that many. Maybe for Austin, he's been on the tour a decent amount. And same thing here. So like if you see some names that you're just not familiar with, assume that there's not a big sample size going into that. I'm not doing any sort of small sample size adjustments in this right now, but we can see Sungjae makes sense. Aaron Wise, Shane Lowry, like that makes sense. Thomas Dietrich just keeps popping up. I like him. Lee Hodges, okay. Taylor Pendrith, Danny McCarthy, JT Poston, like no real shocks here, right? But it's just an interesting data point to go off of. And then I also want to look at scoring. Which players tend to play well on these harder scoring tracks? And we could like put it together as well if we want to see like who ranks out the best. That's up to you. But we can see Shane Lowry, no shock there. Like I said, I didn't even have to look at this. We knew that Shane Lowry is just a hard scoring course specialist. He just is. Then we got Alex Noren popping up there, probably why he's one of the higher priced players. Taylor Pendrith, Thomas Dietrich, Harris English. I'm curious about Andrew here. I'm going to have to look him up why he's being pulled in. Bazoon Hop, Bill Haas, Sungjae Im. So we can see actually Sungjae Im, maybe that's not a good sign that he ranks out 9th. We'll see there. And I don't know, maybe location as well. We could maybe sort by location. Florida, obviously. Just interesting there. And then let's just look at course length because it is a shorter track. Dietrich, Kuchar, obviously Kuchar, definitely a short course specialist. Aaron Baddeley as well. No shot. Danny McCarthy, Chris Kirk, no shock with those guys. Okay, they're not longer hitters. They have to take advantage of events like this, so it makes sense. And someone like Mark Hubbard, I'm curious as to where he is. Like, that's why he plays well, I would assume here. We see Peter Malnati popping up there. I think he's going to be a name I end up on. So a lot of interesting stuff. Let's go ahead and get into the top high tier price point plays. So quite clearly, Sungjae Im is going to be the pay up play this week. Sungjae Im has went miscut at this tournament, which is going to be a worry, but then 8th, 1st, 51st, like just good starts at this tournament. If you look at last week, we can see definitely fell off, and that's not encouraging. 74, 73, that is not encouraging after, being in contention. And that's after 2 weeks in which T6, T4, and T18. So obviously in great recent form rank, saw 3rd best in recent form rank, 2nd best staff in the field, guys, which is obviously great. 1st in effective scoring, which is that 9-5 stat, which basically measures both upside and ability to make the cut. And for what it's worth, I'm looking at this right now, 0 players with a 90% chance to make the cut this week. Last week we had 5, they all made the cut. Very interesting there. Sungjae Im is at 89%. Interesting there. Yeah, just across the board, going to be a strong staff hit, best specialist in the field. Really just coming in as a very strong price point play. If it wasn't for that miscut last year, I think we'd be loading up on him. But just typically a player that's going to make the cut. Typically not someone that's shooting himself out of tournaments. Definitely the pay up play. And I would say this is a very soft price point for a guy that's kind of the clear cut, obvious pay up play. Kind of like John Rahm last week, where it's just like, what is going on with the price in terms of the kind of, I don't want to say like obvious pay up plays, but like John Rahm should have been 12K last week. We kind of mentioned this a few times now. Sungjae Im should probably be at least 11K in terms of roster construction. This is kind of where I'm saying like it is kind of relatively easy to make a strong build, I would say, for this tournament. And that's probably why they priced it this way, to make it more fun for everyone to play. Looking at Shane Lowry, he's coming in as the 2nd best pick in the 9-5 model. Should mention Sungjae Im was 1st in the 9-5 model. Shane Lowry, 2nd, 36th, 21st for this course. Really strong stuff. They're coming in as the 12th best specialist. Now, if we look at his recent form is not solid. That is where he is getting knocked. Okay, Waste Management Phoenix Open, terrible. We look at some starts on the DP Tour, not the best, okay? And sometimes that just happens, and that's kind of why it's tough to really gauge how you should measure DP Tour starts and PGA Tour starts. I'm perfectly fine kind of using them as like an even data point. It's more or less when you see him go from, one start on the DP World Tour or a couple of starts on the DP World Tour, come back to the PGA Tour, struggle in his next event, and then after that play well. Okay, so it's highly encouraging that he played well last week. Obviously, 2 missed cuts, not something we love there. And so recent form-wise, 44th best recent form rank. Okay, so obviously not really good there. Now, looking at his past 10 starts, we see 3 missed cuts mixed in there. The rest of them, all top 30 finishes. Okay. Also has a victory in there 8 starts ago. So I would say, yes, he is the 2nd best play this week for sure, but he is not a safe play. Probably not someone we can play in cash. I'm going to say that's going to be the situation with everyone here from this point on. Like looking at it, I get why Chris Kirk is kind of priced up. Shouldn't be a 10K play, isn't a 10K play. Coming in off of a miscut. Has good course history though. 7th, 25th. Miscut, which not great, but good enough. Recent form-wise, prior to the miscut at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, 3rd and 3rd. Okay, he is a top 5 stat fit and top 10 specialist in the field. So like you could end up on him. Not a great play, probably a little bit overpriced. Like I mentioned with Billy Horschel, probably staying away from him, just given the swing changes. If he wins with those swing changes that he's made, good for him. I don't see it. I've seen him really grinding on courses lately. And even I think it was the Waste Management Phoenix Open where he got like really lucky to be in the position that he was to make the cut, just giving some like fluky kind of shots. I think there was like an eagle and like a chip and birdie that like just typically aren't going to happen. So I don't want to say like an easy fade, but he is someone that I probably just can't end up on. Alex Noren, also an interesting price point play. Also someone we could potentially end up on course history wise, 5th, 46th, 100th. So miscut. Recent form-wise, before the last 2 starts, before the bogey on 18 to miss the cut to Waste Management Phoenix Open, have been playing some good golf, okay? What do we do with him? That's tough to say. Like GPP only play does have 3 top 5 finishes over his past 8 starts. And if you look at like long-term form, these are his 2 cuts that he's missed. 7 out of 9 we see. Like we could play him. And that's the tough part about this week is that we have a lot of strong GPP plays. I would say Noren's a good GPP play. Shane Lowry, a good GPP play. Chris Kirk, maybe not the best GPP play, but we can see the top 10 upside there. And that's really what we're paying up for in this price point range, it seems like. Now I mentioned Woo Lee, where, small sample size data wise was coming in as the best stat rank play. He's not a terrible play. We just don't have that much data on him. How is he going to look on the PGA Tour? I just kind of mentioned with Shane Lowry, I don't like seeing those starts. I want to see at least one start over on the PGA Tour before I really go in on someone in DFS. For some reason, it seems like they have a tough time getting acclimated to playing again on the PGA Tour, and vice versa. Don't get me wrong. Now, to me, kind of the easy play here, I should say quotes, easy play is going to be Matt Kuchar. Has been someone that's just been playing some much better golf recently, has strong course history, doesn't have any course history. So that would be the worry. And by course history, I mean the last 4 years. That's when the data's most significant. You look further back, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but kind of is. It doesn't really help that much. It hurts more than it does help. Looking at key stat wise, top 20 in the field, recent form wise, top 5 in the field. Okay, 8th, 32nd, 79th, which wasn't terrible, 7th, 70th. So his miscuts haven't been really terrible miscuts. Okay. And maybe he was on the bad end of the weather draw at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I didn't look into that. Could have been, you never know. But then prior to that, had been rattling off some good finishes. Obviously, specialist-wise, top 10 in the field. If we look at long-term form and short-term form, in this field, ranks out top 15 in the field, long-term form, and top 7 over the last 5 events. So really just kind of a good enough play considering this price tag. It really wouldn't be shocking to see Matt Kuchar be in contention. It's kind of crazy. We are seeing a lot of these older guys kind of bounce back this year. Justin Rose, Jason Day. Matt Kuchar has had a much better season this year than he had last season. So, it just wouldn't be shocking to see him potentially win. We do see he has a little bit of course, or I guess location ties. Born in Florida, in the Georgia area as well. Not really the same, but take that for what it's worth. Don't get me wrong, I like Aaron Wise. I think Denny McCarthy, though, is going to be a strong GPP play. Denny McCarthy is kind of a similar-ish play to Seb Straka winning, a little bit similar play to Matt Jones winning. Denny McCarthy has went 30th, 3rd, miscut over the past 4 years at this tournament. Obviously, we don't like that. We would want to see 2 made cuts in there, 4 straight made cuts, but still has shown upside at this tournament, is a top 10 specialist at this tournament as well. We can see the recent kind of upside. He is someone that in the fall swing, a lot of people were betting on him to win, didn't happen, and I just want to be shocking to see him kind of finally figure it out this week. He's someone that if he can get hot with the putter, really separate himself from the field, that'd be huge. Okay, so he is typically a cut maker as well. Overall, coming in as a top 5 play in the 9 to 5 mile because he's a good specialist, because he has had some better starts at this tournament recently. As a whole, compared to the rest of the field, is a typically strong kind of cut maker play. Stat rank top 40 in the field, not the best there. Recent form rank top 12 in the field. So really just a strong play to me. And I should mention Aaron Wise, just he is coming in as a top 5 play as well. The issue with Aaron Wise is clearly going to be these last 2 starts where he finished 67th and 79th with 2 missed cuts. Prior to that, had been playing some good golf. Okay. And if you guys remember, the biggest worry with kind of the restart to the 2023 season was how players were going to respond after having months off. And for Aaron Wise, it seems like he has been struggling. Had been playing great in the fall, hasn't been able to get it back. The question is, can he get it back? We'll see, obviously. I would say he's a terrible cash play, makes for a great GPP play. Top 5 specialists in the field, 30th in course history rank, and that's with the miscut, 13th and 35th place finish, so not terrible there. Key stat-wise, top 10 in the field, top 10 recent form rank, and that kind of tells you the field that we have. Coming in off of 2 missed cuts, and guys, my data, especially when I'm looking at recent form rank, really prioritizes making the cut. Okay, that's why this is a data point I actually brought down. Last week, if you were to look at how DraftKings had their pricing done, salary-wise, and ranked it out, and then compare it to 9to5's model rank, the 9to5 data, and this was huge. This typically never happens, not this much. 16% better was the 9to5 data. So if you took how they were ranked salary-wise and compared against how they finished, and then did that with the 9to5 data as well, 16% better. That was pretty crazy. And a majority of that, though, guys, a majority of that literally came from the value tier and whatnot, the players that were pretty much 9to5 was better at establishing which players were going to miss the cut. And that is typically true. That is how I design my data, is to be better at predicting players that are going to both make the cut, but also miss the cut. Okay, we don't want to be on players that are going to miss the cut. Okay, so that's what I emphasize there. And so that's my long way of saying that while prioritizing that, Aaron Wise is still coming in top 5 in recent form rank, which is pretty crazy. All right, so staying with the high tier, you could make a build, I guess, with Kuchar, with Denny McCarthy, and with Thomas Deacher. And that's where I'm going with the soft pricing. It is soft. We can make some really kind of strong builds on paper. And sure, we might not have the best confidence to get 6 for 6 across the cut line, but it still could be a profitable week if we get 5 out of 6, even 4 out of 6 with 2 top 10s. I don't mind that idea. Looking at Thomas Dietrich, though, really tough to ignore him. Top 5 stat fit, second best specialist in the field, best in recent form rank, and that's just because, once again, I kind of mentioned this. I prioritize made cuts, 14 straight made cuts in a row. Okay, just spectacular there. So it's no shock, and you might be worried, well, he doesn't have the best like upside finishes. He does. Okay, 2nd, 9th, 12th, and that's in the fall swing, so a little bit less relevant, but still, we can see why he's one of the better plays. The one issue that we have with Thomas Dietrich is what? No starts at this tournament over the past 4 years. That's going to be the biggest worry with Thomas Dietrich. I'm actually curious. I'm going to look this up real quick. I was wondering if it was going to say that he was living in Florida. I'm curious if he is. Let me just check his Instagram real quick, see if he has an Instagram real quick. Given the fact that he went to the University of Illinois, I'm going to assume that no, he doesn't live in Florida, but a lot of these tour players will live in Florida partially, but he could be someone that just lives on the road while he's over here on the PGA Tour. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing anything on him. If anyone knows that, by chance, for sure, leave it in there for us. I think that'd be interesting. That'd be another reason to go in on him. But just coming in as a strong play. If he had the course history, we'd be loading up on him. I still think he's a fine play at 9K. It's such a cheap price tag. So the last 2 weeks, guys, what has been the easiest thing to do? Skip over this price point range, right? I'm not going to say that's going to be the exact approach to go with this week. We actually have some pretty strong plays this week in this price point range. So looking at it, you could easily start with Taylor Pendrith. Taylor Pendrith has made 7 out of 8 cuts on the PGA Tour now this season. We can see a little bit of mixed results in there. 7th place finish at the AT&T Pebble Beach Prime. Was able to make the cut the last 2 events. Guys, look at this start. I don't care about the miscut at the American Express where he shot 8 under par. I just don't care. 79th place finish there, whatever. So we have seen some starts in which are him barely making the cut, and then also some upside starts, 7th and 15th in there. I kind of keep going back to this, but he kind of has the same feel of Matt Jones, Sepp Straka, where in any tournament other than this one, probably wouldn't go in on him. But if we look on paper, not a terrible play for trying to chase upside. 25th place finish at this tournament last year. 4th best specialist in the field. So encouraging there. 7th best course history with only 1 start. So don't really care about that too much. 28th best stat fit. So, a little bit scary there. I'd want it to be a little bit better, but top 15 in recent form rank. So not a terrible play there as well. JT Poston, Adam Svensson are both pretty decent plays as well. Obviously, JT Poston has been a big letdown recently. Terrible play at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. But if we look at it, it was 1 bad start. And if we want to break that down even further, I would say that the miscut is literally due to the weather delay. He was +2 heading into a par 5. Play got suspended until the next day. He had to play in those tougher scoring conditions then in the morning where it was extremely windy. Ends up bogeying the par 5, which is a hole in which probably, maybe, I don't want to say probably, could have birdied, the previous day where the weather was a little bit more favorable. Ends up just choking that round away. Just wasn't into it. Then follows up the next round with a 70. Okay. Missed the cut at the Genesis Invitational. Not exactly a tournament that you would play JT Poston in, right? Tougher scoring track, a little bit longer track. Not exactly a good fit for him. Whereas this tournament, a little bit better of a fit for him. Top 15 specialist in the field. We can see he's made 3 out of 4 cuts at this tournament as well. That's going to be encouraging there. If we look back further, he had a 6th at 3 straight 21st place finishes. So not a terrible play, but not exactly a play that we're going in on. Adam Svensson, I'm perfectly fine with. And guys, I'm not going to go through every play here. Where the plays are good enough on the top end, and then we're going to really rattle off the plays at the end of this video. But looking at Adam Svensson, I do think he's someone that we should kind of talk about a little bit more. Interesting play. 9th place finish at this tournament last year, and coincidentally, a 9th place finish in his last start at the Genesis Invitational. Waste Management Phoenix Open, struggled, didn't make the cut. Terrible finish there, really. 87th the week before that, 41st, 37th, but had a victory at the RSM Classic. My biggest question is Adam Svensson someone that was potentially taking his foot off the pedal mentally for a little bit there, and then it's all right, let's get back into it. And I could see that potentially. And obviously, probably not the best tournaments for him to be playing in. This is going to be a much better tournament for him, I would say. Top 12 specialist, top 15 playing the 9 to 5 mile. A decent price point play. All right, so now looking at Jonathan Vegas, going to be extremely difficult not to love as a play. The only worry would be that he becomes too chalk of a play. He's made the cut at this tournament the last 4 years. Obviously, we love that. 42nd, 30th, 27th, and 16th place finishes. Key stat-wise, pretty strong as well. For the key stats that we're looking at, there's going to be one alarming stat that we're looking at, and that's going to be 60th in bogey avoidance, and that is Jonathan Vegas. He is someone that doesn't avoid bogeys, that's for sure. So that would be the worry for sure. Greens gained, just GER pretty much, and ball striking, we were looking at that as well as total driving in there. So I'm actually happy that this was was bogey bonus. Just that's not surprising. Okay, so yes, if he's making bogeys like he typically does, that's not a good thing. But if he avoids them, he's going to be a decent play. Recent form wise, we can see 56th last week, quality. 23rd, 25th, and like okay-ish starts mixed in there. Really only one bad start. Okay, terrible make or miscut there. Besides that, we can see like form-wise about 30th in the field or so. Not terrible. Once again, if we kind of use more of the cut-making metrics that go into recent form, we can see top 18 in the field, so not terrible. 30th best specialist. Just across the board, we can see he is a strong play metrics wise. If we're just looking at the key like metrics that we're looking at in terms of predictability, we can see just a strong play. Most likely someone that's going to make the cut. Most likely someone that is too good of a play to pass up on, especially at this price tag, like Thomas Dietrich, Jonathan Vegas. Going to be tough plays not to like this week. And then from there, if we go ahead and look at a play like Adrian, who was, a value price point play that I kind of mentioned last week, is still going to be a strong play. The biggest worry with him was coming in off of only making starts on the DP Tour and looking at his PGA Tour starts, not exactly the best, missed the cut at the Bermuda Championship. That's obviously the worry. So to me, it's highly encouraging to see a really strong play, DP Tour wise, make the cut. And so do we feel comfortable going in on a player from the DP Tour? Probably not like too much, but kind of considering the price tag, it is going to be difficult not to like him. And, pulling in the data from the DP Tour, specialist-wise, 6th best in the field. Now, sure, there might not be as big of a sample size going in there, but still, you look at hard scoring tracks, does really well there. Stat rank, once again, this is mostly due to DP Tour stats that we have coming in on this and small sample size on the PGA Tour. Top 5 stat rank. Once again, I just want to echo that's small sample size, but still. Encouraging. That's not bad, right? We like to see that. And then top 5 recent form rank. In the 9-to-5 model, I do a small sample size adjustment, which, to not get into like the details of it too much, is pretty much just weighing the amount of data that we have going into it compared to the other players with the equal kind of model rank that's coming in, and just comparing it, weighing it against that, and he still ranks out as top 10 play. Okay, so even with the small sample size adjustment that goes into the 9-to-5 model, still ranking out as a strong play. We can kind of see why. Only like 2 alarming finishes. The only issue is that one of those was on the PGA Tour. Other than that, looking like a good play. So from there, I'm fine with any of these plays. Let's go ahead and drop into that low tier price point here. I'm actually curious here. He could have been a decent play, Patrick Rodgers, this week. After being a strange chalk cash play, Patrick Rodgers was a GPP only play, but ended up being one of the highest owned players in cash. Made a lot of sense in GPPs, don't get me wrong. Terrible cash play. It was strange. Just given the recent form, guys, just a reminder to this. You want to play guys in cash that have good recent form and have made cuts at the tournament. You don't want to chase someone in cash that's a risky made cut if they're chalky and not above like 6K. It was just strange to see him, a risk reward based play be chalk and cash last week. Looking at Robbie Shelton. Robbie Shelton, to me, is a very interesting play this week as well. Just coming in as a decent play across the board. Obviously made the cut in his last 3 starts, showing a couple of top 10 finishes mixed in there as well. He's a play that it just wouldn't be shocking to see in contention. And we have seen that already happen for him at this tournament. 2 years ago, missed the cut. 3 years ago, top 12 finish. So, has shown upside to play well at this tournament. I just like the fact that we do have some upside finishes. Top 20 specialist rank, top 14 course history rank, obviously miscut and top 12 finish, not going to be all too well. Recent form rank, top 25 in the field, and that's true for, long-term and short-term form. Top 20 specialist, top 20 play in the 9-to-5 model, just a decent GPP play. Obviously, the lower we get, the more likely all of these players are going to be GPP only plays. Looking at someone like Aaron Rai, I think he's going to be a strong price point play as well in terms of playing someone that has the potential to make a cut. Now, the biggest issue with Aaron Rai is that his recent finishes have not been elite. 29th, 42nd, and 52nd, those are not good finishes. We'd want a little bit more out of him, and I also don't love the fact that he has a 66th place finish here for his only start. Now, I do like the fact that in his only start here in the last 4 years, he was able to make the cut. So that's a good thing. Ranks out top 30 in the 9-to-5 model, top 20 specialist, top 15 stat rank, could be much better recent form rank wise. Ranks out 33rd in the field. To me, Lee Hodges is an interesting play. You're playing him to get lucky. 18th place finish last week. Before that, no good starts, but he does have a 9th place finish at this tournament. Take that for what it's worth, I guess. It does feel probably overpriced. Now, I would feel much better about Justin Suh this week if it weren't for that freaking AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am where he withdrew with a shoulder injury, which we have no idea if that was true or not, or if he was just mad that he got the bad end of the weather wave. He started out with forget what it was. It was on the first hole, par 5, I think, pipes one down the fairway and then makes a triple bogey. It seemed strange. So it did seem like a legitimate injury, given the fact that he took off a week and then finished 40th last week. I think I like him as a play. I mean, I definitely would like him as a play if it weren't for that injury. And that's really what's hindering him as a play, is that withdrawal. Besides that, we can see he had been making a bunch of cuts. And I would say probably going to be a great play this week. Top Korn Ferry Tour player last year, and we're getting him at this cheap price tag. Also someone that had been making a bunch of cuts on the PGA Tour. Now we get a field that's I shouldn't say slightly better. It is definitely way better than more of the Korn Ferry Tour events, but get a field that's more close to a Korn Ferry Tour event than we've had, recently. At 7.6, he's definitely an intriguing price point play. Ryan Palmer is kind of interesting to me as well as a play. Looking at him, 3 straight made cuts at this tournament, 70th, 17th, 4th, good stuff there. 3 out of his last 4 cuts made on the PGA Tour. Not great finishes, but still not a terrible play. Ranks out top 26 in the 9 to 5 mile this week. An okay price point play. It's ugly, but Padraig Harrington somewhat popping, and I just don't even want to play him. This is going to be because of these DP Tour starts. Okay. Has been playing well on the Champions Tour for what it's worth. I don't like the fact that he's popping up. We look at his course history here, 3 straight made cuts or 3 straight missed cuts. So that's terrible, but for what it's worth, wanted to call it out. He was someone that was popping. Isn't it crazy that Webb Simpson is this low and we're not even considering him as a play? It's how far he has fallen is just crazy. So to me, kind of the standout play in this price point tier, especially considering price tag, would be Adam Schenk. Adam Schenk has been someone I've been monitoring a decent amount because he has been someone considering the price tag has been someone you could think about playing. And he is typically someone that's not going to be a terrible play. And I say that slightly because he was terrible at the American Express and the Houston Open, but besides that, pretty good starts, especially considering the tournaments. So typically speaking, not someone that's going to be hurting you too much. If you play him as a value play each and every week throughout the season, he's going to be someone that rewards you. Now, what will he do this week? We don't know. Okay, course history wise, miscut last year, 36th, miscut, and 34th. So mixed results. I guess if we get a made cut at this tournament, we can assume he's going to get a top 30 place finish. I would take that. Key stat wise, ranks out top 20 of the field, which is going to be the most encouraging thing. Not really someone that's going to hurt you too much. He's going to play some smart golf. It's just whether or not he can hit the shots is really what it comes down to. We can see recent form has been great. 4 straight made cuts. Like to see that. If we look at long-term form, ranks out 32nd in the field. If you look at the past 15 starts, how he would rank out there. If you look at the past 5 starts, ranks out top 10 in the field. Specialist rise, top 20 in the field as well. So a quality price point play, I would say. I kind of mentioned Peter Malnati as an interesting play. He is 20th last week, miscut the Waste Management Phoenix Open, 4th, 20th, had been producing some good stuff, and his miscuts weren't terrible miscuts either. It just wouldn't be shocking in this event to see him have a good week. Course history wise, miscut 36, so okay, not someone we love too much. I thought Mark Hubbard would pop up a little bit more than he is, but his form has just been terrible, so probably someone we're ignoring. I guess if he has a good start, I guess it wouldn't be shocking. We can definitely resort back to that course history, 15th, 46th, 11th, but not someone we're chasing. Now, what do we do with Aaron Baddeley? He was our boy. He has been our boy this season, right? 37th at AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Missed a cut at the Farmers. That sucked. Other than that, though, 50th, 7th, 39th. Missed cut at the Macoba. -3, though. 6th and 36th. So he has had some good starts. Okay, recent form-wise, ranks out top 10 in the field. That is elite. Specialist-wise, terrible. Ranks out 100th in the field. He is someone that does play better on shorter tracks, struggles on hard-scoring tracks. What do we do with that? I don't really know. He's someone that's going to be in my player pool, not someone that's going to be a cash play, but considering the price tag, definitely someone we can consider, just not someone we feel comfortable with. And so guys, each week I make the same mistake every single weekend. It's just not playing enough of my favorite value plays in studs and duds builds every single week. And we see the data back it up, both cash wise, long-term wise, if you were to play all your studs into a cash build and then filter in the top values, you can typically hit 50% of them. And if the top players produce, you're most likely going to get 5 out of 6 and be sitting pretty. Last week was very much a week in which I'm kind of kicking myself for not doing more studs and duds builds. It was my best build with Adrian and Sam Ryder last week, mixed in with not a single Max Homa Rahm build, which is tough to do considering that Rahm was my top play and Homa was my third best play. And there was a couple, but there's a couple of miscuts in there. That was painful. Okay. And so each week I tell myself I'm going to do more, and I don't know, it's a mental mental hurdle, obviously. And this week it's not going to be pretty, but we get someone like Eric Cole, who is kind of looking like a good play. We can see recent form wise has been, pretty good. Actually, ranks out top 12 in the field recent form rank, which is pretty crazy, especially considering the price tag. We don't have that much data on him stat fit wise. Ranks out 62nd in the field, and like specialist wise, not that much data on him as well, but ranks out 20th in the field in specialist ranking. So considering the price tag, we could do much worse than Eric Cole. Like if he makes the cut, it's not going to be shocking. No one's going to be shocked by that, given how well he's played recently. Sadly, I might be able to just talk myself into some Michael Kim. I don't know if I want to or not. Probably not. Ranks out as someone that has a 53% chance to make the cut, so slightly favored to make a cut. Obviously, the lower we go down, the less pretty it's going to get. If we're playing him, we would be chasing these last 3 starts. Obviously, missed the cut at the American Express, still shot under par, not terrible. I mean, that was a 115th place finish, so it was terrible, but still shot under par. For what it's worth, Danny Lee ranks out 53rd in the 905 mile, about a 53% chance to make the cut. Obviously, don't like to start at the Genesis. Okay play. Andrew Novak, he's been playing better recently as well. Recent form ranks out top 40 in the field. Terrible specialist, ranking out 94th in the field, but ranks out 62nd in the 95 miles. So someone that could make the cut. Obviously not a great play, but it just wouldn't be shocking to see him have a good week. For what it's worth, Tyler Duncan did receive a price bump to 6.6. Yeah, I mean, that's probably right. 51% chance to make the cut. Only ranks out 77th in the 95 mile. Like, probably not playing him, but hopefully someone got rewarded by playing him last week. Goya has made 3 straight cuts. We don't have that much data on him, but I guess it just won't be shocking to see him make the cut. Then lastly, here in this value tier range, Dylan Wu made the cut at this tournament last year, finishing 30th. Obviously, the form isn't going to be great, but 5 out of 8 made cuts. Just not terrible. Ranks out as someone that's going to be right around a made cut or missed cut. Obviously, we don't love him as a play, but is someone we could potentially end up on. All right, so the core plays section I struggle with this week. Just, I don't know, because it's not pretty, obviously. At the same time, like, just going through the process, we can kind of see that these are going to be the correct plays, considering the price tag, considering everything we know about them and this tournament, right? We just never feel good about it. I never like to use the lock word or anything like that. And it feels wrong to call these guys core plays. Now, I will be treating them as players I'm going out of my way to play. And I would say that's the best way to describe them this week. So Jonathan Vegas is going to be one of the core plays. So the biggest issue that I really have with Jonathan Vegas is that it's literally in tournaments in which it seems like he's the correct play, in which he typically hurts us. Like, those are the tournaments in which he hurts us. So 4 straight make cuts of this tournament. Obviously, we like that. Heck, I would take a 42nd place finish from him. I wouldn't love it, but I would take it. I would take a make cut, which was the start that he had last year at this tournament. Okay. Key stat wise ranks out pretty good in the field, top 10 in the field. Stat wise, course history rank, top 10 in the field, recent form rank, top 20 in the field. And that really tells you the caliber of field that we have. 3 straight make cuts. We like to see that. Just playing some good golf, especially in 2023. Like, if you're looking him up on like PGA Tour stats, you're seeing him pop up in like strokes gained tee to green and whatnot. Overall, top 12 play in the field. I already mentioned, like, the biggest concern that we have is him making too many bogeys, not avoiding the bogeys, but considering the price tag, 8.6, such a cheap price tag, someone I'm going in on. And so the biggest worry with Thomas Dietrich is going to be simply the fact that he doesn't have any starts here at this tournament. Besides that, going to be a pretty strong play across the board. Nothing too alarming. Like, long-term form, top 4 in the field, short-term form, top 4 in the field, specialist wise, second best specialist in the field, top 5 playing the 95 mile. Just considering this price tag, it's going to be tough not to like Thomas Dietrich. And it makes your roster construction much more simple. So as you guys can see, like, the first 2 players are going to be players that are coming in with good form. Some players that, we're just hoping continue that good form. And so with that, I probably will just be treating Sungjae Im as a core play. Now, I should warn you guys, whenever Sungjae, there's been one player that's missed the cut as the top player in the 905 model. It's happened twice. Can you guess who it is? Yeah, it's Sungjae Im. That's over the past 2 years. And it was at the Sony Open, I believe, both years. But it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzy feelings playing him this week, right? Going as the top player in the 95 mile this week. He could miss the cut. Let's just be honest with it. Like, coming in off of 2 bad weekend rounds, that's not encouraging to me, okay? Did have that random kind of miscut at the Sony Open as well. That we just kind of wrote off with poor course history. Now, he does have good course history here for the most part. Miscut last year, 8th, 1st, 51st. So, like, I will just take the price discount on Sungjae and roll with him. If he misses the cut, honestly, I'm okay with it, because, like, I'm really playing him for his upside. Because if he makes the cut, I'm assuming he has his B+ game. And I say that because I think he can still get a top 15 place finish with his B+ game. If he plays like the normal Sungjae Im, we should be getting a top 10 place finish, right? Like, by far the best play in the field. Really strong play. I like him a lot. And don't get me wrong, I talked up these players right here a lot. considering their price tag, they're all very strong plays, right? We can see that on paper. But for me, and I will admit, this is much more of a feeling-based play. And honestly, it's probably just given the fact that we don't have that big of a data sample size on him on the PGA Tour. So it's kind of the false positive reinforcement here, okay? But I just like the price tag. 8.3 is a cheap price tag. Like, honestly, if this were the DP Tour, he'd be priced at like 9.5. You'd be priced 11,000 more with the same players in the field, okay? This is a tournament that I think he will play well at. I like the fact that he had a start over here and made the cut last week as well. That's encouraging to me. So I will just be rolling with him. I think he's a strong price point play. And then lastly, I want to make this clear. Considering his price tag, he is someone I'm going to end up on more than probably the field. And that's why I'm going to tag him as a core play for this video. Now, obviously, like the 9 to 5 write-up, which is something I spend way too much time on. He might not end up on as a core play in the player pool, 9 to 5 player pool. That's available for 9 to 5 members. If you guys want access to that, click the link in the description below. $10 a month gets you access to these tools, the 9 to 5 lineup builder, the ownership leverage tool, which if I bring up the ownership leverage tool, it was 12% better than the field in terms of like ownership. So if you take how the players ranked out ownership leverage wise, once again, by how they finished and compare it to the top plays ranked or the top ownership plays from last week ranked and comparing them against how they finished, 12% better. That was huge last week, and it's huge the week before that as well. Get you access to that as well. But that being said, like right now, Monday afternoon, my initial thought was Adam Schenk is too cheap, and we can see data-wise top 20 play in the field. Now, maybe his ownership becomes too crazy to the point where I don't want to be on him, but we can see when he's made the cut here, 36 place finishes, like 36 and 30th. We like that. 2 missed cuts, 2 made cuts. They were around 30th place finishes. Key stat wise, a little bit alarming there. Bogey avoidance, 66. You know, that's not what we want to see, but I'm actually curious. Let's go ahead and sort that by the field. Yeah, because we're not always getting a full sample size for everyone. So 60th or so in the field, and this is on the season, is probably around 30th in the field, which not terrible. Obviously not something we love. We can see though, top 20 specialists, form has been solid as a whole, especially considering the field. Like I would say he has a strong chance to make the cut. If we pull up his make cut percent, about 67% chance to make the cut. So considering the price tag, you guys can see why I like him as a play. Now, ideally, if we get into the first look build here, ideally we would want to make this work, right? 6.2, let's just take a quick gander here. I'm trying to say maybe Brian Gay. I could, No, not Brian Gay. Yeah, no. So I'm going to rebuild. Okay. And so with that, this is the tough part. Probably get off of Sanjay. And then we go with one of these players I think are going to be a standout play. Probably Matt Kuchar for now. 7.6 left over. Let's take a peek. Justin Suh, you guys heard me talk him up. I think he's a good play. Would probably be a core play to me this week if we weren't worried about the injury situation, but we are. So let's go ahead and plug this into the 9 to 5 lineup tool. Okay, so we can see on paper, this is a much worse build than we've had the past 2 weeks. Obviously, the last 2 weeks, the fields were loaded, right? This week, not going to be the case. And still has a pretty good, 6 for 6% chance, but that's pretty good. Recent form average is terrible. I'd want to prioritize that probably the most, but a decent play across the board. I do like the fact that they are good specialists, good stat fits. All right, that's going to be all for this video. Was a long video. I actually really enjoyed kind of doing the deep dive for this. Hopefully I didn't talk too much. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let's have a good slate. And as always, guys, let's keep cashing.